blue planet is facing one of the biggest threats in human history. Trillions of pieces of plastic are choking the very lifeblood of our Earth.
And every marine animal, from the smallest plankton to the planet's largest creatures, is facing this new and growing threat.
But how much do we really know about this plastic tide?
Nick, very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Permission to come aboard.
I'm Liz Bonnen, a wildlife biologist. Last year, Blue Planet 2 made the plastic crisis impossible to ignore, and your response has been extraordinary. Since then, scientists have made startling new discoveries.
Is that Vibrio?
Yes.
Is that...
Oh my God.
I'll be joining expeditions across the globe in some of the most remote and inhospitable places to discover what's happening in our oceans right now.
My God. Look at it.
I'll work with rescue missions attempting to save some of the worst affected animals.
Oh God, the damage is unbelievable.
And meet the engineers racing to design radical solutions. The world has been shaken by the plastic crisis. But can we turn the tide before it's too late?
This is the story of plastic in our oceans.
I'm beginning my mission with a group of animals that scientists believe are the key indicators for the health of our oceans. Seabirds. Seabirds spend much of their life around plastic. They fly across the world, living on both the open ocean and the shorelines. They hunt on the surface of the sea where some plastic floats, and beneath the waves where smaller fragments are suspended in the water. And many eat almost anything they can find, including plastic. And one seabird has recently been discovered to eat more plastic relative to their size than any other animal in the ocean: the flesh-footed shearwater. 400 miles off the coast of Australia, in the Tasman Sea, is Lord Howe Island. This 6-mile stretch of rock is home to the largest colony of flesh-footed shearwaters on the planet. 40,000 of them migrate here every autumn to the safety of the island's pristine rainforests, where they lay their eggs in burrows.
Just gone 8 o'clock here on Lord Howe Island in the middle of the Tasman Sea, and I'm about to join a team of scientists and volunteers who have been gathering here every single year for the past 12 years. Hello. Oh, look at you. Off he goes, waddling down the path towards the sound of the sea.
The team is led by marine biologist Dr. Jennifer Lavers. For over a decade, she's been investigating how plastic is affecting the shearwaters. She believes that these birds hold the key to understanding how plastic could be harming all marine life.
All right, these are for self-protection.
Okay.
The birds have quite sharp beaks and also very sharp claws, so those will come in very handy.
Okay, perfect. They're everywhere. They're scurrying everywhere, and they're so dark. They just sort of appear out of nowhere. A little bit too late for comfort for me.
Okay, off we go.
Tonight, for the first time in their young lives, the shearwater chicks emerge from their burrows. From the moment they were born, they should have been fed a nutritious diet of fish and squid. But when their parents go hunting, they often mistake plastic for food. We hand over the chicks to Lord Howe Islander Ian Hutton and Dr. Alex Bond, who carry out a delicate procedure.
Okay, so what exactly are you doing now?
Well, we've measured this one and weighed him, and now we're doing the final step, which is lavaging, which is basically gently pumping a bit of water into the stomach and getting him to vomit into the basin. So if you like to hold him open, Alex, we'll see if we can get this down the throat.
Easy, fella.
Okay, so that's gone into the stomach
Very
there.
nicely done, very smooth.
Right, pumping.
Oh,
And look at that.
jeepers.
Stomach's full of
1,
plastic.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, the size of that piece. Sharp too.
Oh my God.
So the parents had to vomit that up to feed the chick, and then the chicks had that in the stomach and now just coughed it up.
So they're gradually, with all the best intentions, feeding their chicks to death, potentially. Filling their stomachs with big pieces of plastic
Rubbish.
that are...
Felt
Yeah.
plastic on the way down there.
This time?
Just now I could feel it. As the tube was going in, I could feel
I can't
plastic
believe how much is
scraping.
coming out.
Oh, look at that. Man.
Oh my gosh, this is ridiculous.
I think that was blocking the throat, so he's having trouble getting it all out. And now that we've got rid of that big bit, we might be able to remove it all. Amazing, isn't it?
I can't believe just... Is this, on average, what you find? About 20 pieces? How much do you normally find?
I think the record's about 260. That's a really bad bird.
In a chick?
In a chick. Yeah.
Ugh, I'm in shock. I mean, I knew there was a plastic problem. It's just when you see...
You see it firsthand,
Yeah.
yeah.
My head's spinning already, and it's our first chick.
Yeah. Okay.
That's just mad when you... It's just, yeah. Oh my God. It's really, really hard to watch this poor little thing regurgitating plastic after plastic after plastic. And that wasn't even a bad one. That was 19 pieces of plastic. So yeah, I feel angry and emotional and full of feelings I didn't quite expect would be so strong right now. Yeah, that's about it, really.
.2. Yeah, not much.
For the next 3 hours, we measure them, take feather and blood samples, and empty their stomachs to increase their chances of survival.
So in the 12 years you've been doing this in this location, what's changed? What have you seen happening to this breeding colony?
The numbers have definitely fluctuated, but definitely more and more of the birds have plastic in them. And we are finding an increasing number of birds that seem to be more heavily affected. So quite a number of years ago, you know, the average number of pieces of plastic per bird might have been closer to perhaps 5 or 10 pieces per bird, and now it's much closer to 30 or 40 pieces per bird. So things are shifting.
By 11 p.m., the birds have stopped emerging from their burrows, and it's time to call it a night.
I am absolutely shattered. Not only are they long, emotionally draining nights, but it's a relentless job. I'm only doing it for 1 or 2 more nights. These guys are here for 60 nights. I don't know how they do it. Right, to bed.
The 3-month-old shearwater chicks that left their burrows tonight are beginning one of the most astounding journeys in the natural world. They can't fly yet. Their parents have left them to fend for themselves, and they've never even seen the sea. And yet, instinct drives them to begin an extraordinary endeavour, waddling through the dense rainforest in the dark, across the beaches, and out through the pounding surf. Once there, they must teach themselves to fly and hunt. And for those who manage to take off, they won't touch land again for 5 years, when they'll return to breed. But the shearwaters who have been fed plastic are often so weighed down they can't fly, and so weak they can't get past the surf. Many simply won't make it.
He's really, really bad. Oh my gosh. This is what happens when they leave the colony in poor condition. They can't get up off the surface of the water and they get tumbled in the waves and it exhausts them, and this is how they wash up on the beach.
This one looks so nutritionally compromised. I can't imagine that he'd ever make it.
The key for these guys in the long term is, in the absence of issues like plastic or other human pressures, is the species can deal with a little bit of loss like this.
Yeah.
It's when we start to put other pressures like plastic into the environment that
It's when you start seeing too many of these chicks on this beach in this condition, or worse.
exactly. So we'll put him in a bag and we'll put him in a warm spot, and we'll have a look for any others.
Gosh, yeah, he's on death's door.
What do you normally do? Sort of.
Realistically, we'll probably just let nature run its course.
How often do you find evidence of plastic ingestion in the chicks that you gather on the beach that haven't made it?
Virtually every one. There's some kind of bottle cap or small fragment, or maybe the lid of a pen or something like that.
I mean, there are very few places left on the planet that are so remote and pristine, seemingly, than Lord Howe Island, and yet even here,
It shows what the rest of the world is doing, impacts wildlife on even the remote
Everywhere.
islands everywhere.
and it's a global responsibility. It's that much is without question.
Yep.
We head back to the island lab to examine the dead chicks.
Do we know the source of most of the plastics that you find in the flesh-footed shearwaters?
Unfortunately, not a lot are what we call unidentifiable fragments, but every now and then we encounter something that is really recognizable. So this is a jar of plastics from the flesh-footed shearwater here on Lord Howe Island.
How many birds contribute to this amount of plastic?
Maybe 50 to 100, give or take. And right away we see some top offenders. So a really common one, let's have a look here.
Oh my good Lord, that is insane.
So-
Bottle caps, whole bottle caps. How does that go down the throat of a 3-month-old shearwater? I don't
Great question.
understand.
This is the top of Tetra Paks, maybe some boxed milk or
Yeah,
boxed
yeah.
juice. Anything that we've really ever made from plastic. As we know, every bit of plastic ever made is still out there, and the birds are precision finding mechanisms. They go out there in the ocean, they find it, they bring it back, and so we are never surprised at what we find in the ocean.
It's the most surreal thing to see. I cannot believe all of this has come out of shearwater stomachs.
Over the past 10 years, Jen and her team have had the disturbing task of recording the stomach contents of every shearwater chick they've found.
So we've opened this chick up now, and there's quite a volume in here.
Her studies reveal that by weight, shearwaters eat the most plastic of any marine animal.
There's no doubt this bird died as a result of this plastic ingestion.
The contents of this bird's stomach is the equivalent of a human eating 10 kilos of plastic.
It's quite remarkable.
But Jen's research has revealed that the plastic may be doing even more damage than first thought.
So if we hold this up to the light.
In the last few months, she's discovered evidence that chemicals found on plastic could be disrupting the bird's hormones.
From these studies, we know that they interfere with hormone production and the function of hormones in the bloodstream. And so the bird or other animal can look completely normal on the outside and yet not actually be able to reproduce and grow correctly.
More research needs to be done, but Jen now believes that even small amounts of plastic may impact a bird's health. We may have drastically underestimated the effect that plastic is having on these animals.
And all of this can be in the plastics that these birds are ingesting.
Now you understand the complex challenge that scientists have to try and tease it all apart and figure out the world that these seabirds now live in, the challenge that they face.
This research into shearwaters has serious implications for the health of all marine life. Over 200 different marine species have been found to ingest plastic. But the question that scientists are still grappling with is why they're eating it in the first place. Fascinating new research suggests that smell might play an important part. Algae growing on ocean plastic gives off a scent that acts like a beacon, attracting a whole host of species. It's also thought that sea life may mistake tiny pieces of plastic for fish eggs and plastic bags for jellyfish. But while research into what makes plastic so attractive to sea life continues, teams across the planet work around the clock to rescue as many animals as they can. It's time to leave Lord Howe Island.
What's really at the forefront of my mind is that if this is what's going on to a tiny bird on a tiny remote island in the middle of nowhere, then this is a symptom of something so much bigger than I could possibly have imagined.
To have any chance of stopping this plastic tide, it's vital to understand exactly where it's coming from. Around the globe, every minute, we buy 1 million plastic bottles, 1 million disposable cups, and 2 million plastic bags. And every minute, an entire rubbish truckload of plastic ends up in the ocean. Over a year, this adds up to a staggering 8 million tons. And it's estimated that half of all that plastic enters the ocean from our rivers. The Yangtze, the Nile, the Ganges, the world's rivers have been turned into plastic arteries coursing towards the sea. One of the worst affected rivers is the Citarum in Indonesia. In April of this year, a giant plastic berg blocked a section of the river that flows into the capital city of Jakarta. I'm traveling to Indonesia to find out why rivers here and across the world are choking with plastic.
So we've arrived on the island of Java in Indonesia and it is bucketing it down in true tropical rain style. We have just got a call from some villagers who are supposed to visit in a few days' time. And because of these rains, they're sitting in the middle of something that is so disturbing, they've asked us to head out there straight away. So that's where we're going now.
I'm meeting Indra Dharmawan, a local whose village plays a reluctant part in the nation's plastic crisis.
Indra?
Yeah, hello.
Nice to meet you. How are you today? Where are we heading? This way?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
He takes me down to the banks of the Citarum River.
plastic, many plastic.
Oh my God. There are people fishing in it.
Yes.
Overnight, an enormous raft of plastic waste has appeared, over a mile long and stretching across the entire width of the river.
I have never seen anything quite like this. What is going on? What is going on?
20 years ago, this stretch of river was teeming with fish. Now, it's being flooded by a deluge of plastic waste. Each day, an estimated 2,000 tons of plastic flows down this river. And today, after the heavy rains, it's one of the worst plastic rafts locals have ever seen.
God. Indra, this is crazy.
Yeah.
What are these guys, what are they doing on the boats?
Dan pemulung itu tiap hari ngambil sampah dari sini, tapi sampah-sampahnya sampah yang punya nilai ekonomi. Lalu kita kumpulkan, lalu kita jual ke pabrik plastik.
Many of the litter pickers used to be fishermen, but plastic waste and pollution in the river has reduced the number of fish species by 60%. And what's left is potentially dangerous to eat.
Kalau dulu iya saya ambil ikan dari sini, kalau sekarang mah saya nggak berani ambil ikan dari Sungai Citarum. Dari Sungai Citarum, kalau sekarang mah saya nggak berani gitu kasih ikan sama.
I just can't believe how people can cope with this. It's this weird, surreal reality that I never really expected to experience in my lifetime, you know, but this is real. This is what's going on. And there are guys on boats just getting on with their day's work, picking plastic out of this massive raft that's now moving downstream. My God, look at it, like, just look at it.
To find out how all this plastic has ended up in the river, I travel upstream to the region of Bandung, home to 165 villages, many of which are on the banks of the Citarum. I've contacted a local environmental campaigner, Denny Riswandani.
Wowzers. So this is where all the village puts their plastic. They're making their own landfill site because they're getting no help from anyone else to do this.
Ya, ini bentuk keprihatinan kita ya, ketika pemerintah menyuruh kepada warganya untuk mengatasi sampah, tapi pemerintah sendiri tidak menyediakan fasilitas untuk mengurangi sampah kepada masyarakat. Ini dilema.
Is this the same scenario in all the villages that border this Citarum?
Ya, sehingga masyarakat dengan bebas menjadikan bantaran-bantaran ini sebagai TPS, tempat penampungan atau pembuangan sampah secara liar sebenarnya.
The villagers say that they've used the Citarum as a place to get rid of their rubbish for centuries.
Dulu memang ramah lingkungan sebelum ada plastik.
But the rapid rise in the use of plastic has replaced many organic materials and swamped the river and its banks.
It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Villagers say the local government here provides no facilities to collect and dispose of the rubbish. Globally, it's estimated that 2 billion people have no access to proper waste management. That's a quarter of the world's population who have no option but to throw their plastic waste on their own doorsteps or in a nearby waterway. But governments are not the only ones being blamed for this. Many think that corporations play a big part in the plastic crisis too. And wealthy global brands have been accused of knowingly selling products to developing countries that often have no adequate way of disposing of the plastic packaging.
Hello.
Much of the concern is over small plastic sachets that make everyday goods affordable to those with little or no income.
So you bought straws and then drinks.
Sachets provide locals here with modern essentials like washing powder, toothpaste and shampoo, and they cost very little.
Terima kasih. There is a huge dilemma here. On the one hand, you have this new affordable lifestyle that everybody here is as entitled to enjoy as much as we are in the West. And the sachets give them that. But then on the other hand, you've got rivers teeming with the stuff. And whose responsibility is that?
Around the world, governments and corporations are starting to address the problem. Some companies are making very public pledges to make all their products 100% reusable, recyclable or compostable by 2025. But many believe 2025 is just too late. The figures suggest that by then, the amount of plastic pouring into our oceans could have already doubled. With such disturbing projections, I want to investigate what other solutions can be found.
Adam and John, is that right? It's good to finally talk to you.
Inventors and engineers have been designing technology that collects the plastic from our rivers before it enters the sea. The first person I speak to is a surfer from Sydney.
So I was reading about your sea bin, and I wanted to know a little bit more about it.
The sea bin is quite a simple device. We've basically got a rubbish bin. We have a small water pump, and then we filter out the debris in the middle.
Do you ever imagine bringing some sort of sea bin out to Asia?
We've got an order sheet with requests from about 170 countries, and as depressing as it is, it's quite an amazing time to see the opportunity of, how we can fix this.
The sea bin is an effective solution for harbours and smaller rivers, but it simply couldn't withstand the huge volumes of plastic pouring down the most polluted rivers in the world.
There is one solution, which is called Mr. Trash Wheel, and they're pulling out thousands and thousands of pounds of trash per year. And this is something that's suited for high volumes.
This wheel has been built in Baltimore Harbour. It lifts plastic rubbish from the river and drops it into a barge.
The trash wheel is actually a very simple machine. The water wheel gets its energy from two different sources. One is the flow of the river that brings the trash. The other is we have solar panels on the trash wheel.
Yeah, that sounds incredible.
Since the wheel started turning in 2014, it's collected almost 1 million plastic bottles, 500,000 plastic bags, and 11 million cigarette butts that are made up of tiny plastic fibers.
We picked up over 35 tons of trash in one day.
Wow.
But with each wheel costing around $500,000, this technology could be just too expensive for many local councils in countries like Indonesia. In Amsterdam, engineers have been experimenting with bubbles. A tube full of holes is placed near the bottom of a river. The air bubbles are forced to the surface, trapping the plastic and funneling it to the riverbank, ready for collection. This design has great potential, but it's still in the prototype phase. I'm also keen to find out about solutions that are coming at the ocean plastic problem from a completely different angle.
I've arranged a meeting with this young entrepreneur who's been developing an alternative material to plastic. Now, if it's as good as the reports I've been reading online, it feels to me like this could be a real game changer.
David?
Hello.
Hello.
Liz, yeah.
I'm Liz.
Hi.
David Christian has been experimenting with a natural resource that could replace plastic packaging. He's focusing on finding an alternative to the billions of plastic sachets used in Indonesia and other developing countries.
What is this made of?
It's made of seaweed without using any chemical process. So we can use it for the...
Cereal bar?
Yeah, like from the bar and then from the coffee sachet.
So you basically just have to bung this in
the hot water and then stir it.
Right, I'm going to taste this coffee because you promised me it would not taste of the sea.
Yeah, please. It's very hot.
That's great. That's a great cup of coffee.
This is for soap. So you don't need to open the soap. We can just wash our hand.
Yes. That's it, just
yeah.
And start rubbing?
Start rubbing.
That dissolves really quickly. When I think about the amount of little plastic soaps in plastic packaging in all the hotels around the world, wrapped in separate little small plastic bags, and how this could completely change that industry for the better. That's huge.
David and his team have also used their seaweed technology to design fast food packaging.
I presume the only nutrition in this is in the wrapper.
And disposable cups.
Take bite.
Food packaging makes up over a third of all plastic waste in the ocean. While there are still some concerns about how seaweed farms might affect coastal ecosystems, the potential of this design is enormous.
Are big companies that make all of these sachets biting your hand off at the moment?
Yes, until now we already get inquiries from more than 200 companies, including those big companies.
I mean, the potential is huge. That much is very clear from what you've achieved so far. I needed to meet someone like you who has their feet firmly on the ground, but who is finding an absolutely exciting and viable solution to all this. So I wish you all the best in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much.
That was really great. It seems to me to be such an exciting, but more importantly, a really concrete solution to the plastic problem. And it's coming from a young Indonesian. He's only 25 years old. It's coming from a country that's one of the biggest plastic polluters in the world. I cannot wait to see what this guy achieves in the next few years.
The staggering rise in our global consumption of plastic is down to the fact that it's cheap to produce, light to transport, and incredibly strong. This makes it very attractive to big industry, not least those working on the ocean, who need a material that can cope with the phenomenal power of the sea. The fishing industry puts more plastic in the sea than any other sector. Fishing is one of the largest and oldest industries in the world. It employs 200 million people, and nearly every net, rope and line used in commercial fishing is made of plastic. Over 1 million tons of plastic fishing gear is lost or dumped at sea each year. And the consequences for marine life are catastrophic. I'm heading to one of the busiest fishing grounds in the world, in New England, on the east coast of America. I'm meeting a search and rescue team to better understand how fishing gear affects sea life.
They're all getting together for the morning briefing, so I'm just gonna run in.
Low tide is around 2 p.m. today. So we're going to be trying to work around the tide. We're going to try and get out as soon as possible. So yesterday we did count at least 17 animals that were entangled. So the work that we're doing today is really important. Thank you all for being here. Let's get all of our gear ready and start getting people loaded up.
Brian Sharp leads this team of highly trained experts and volunteers.
Seeing everybody walking around with lists,
Yes,
lists, heads down, lists.
It is, yes. I mean, because it is a massive amount of equipment, personnel, just the whole coordination of this. You know, it's something that we only get certain opportunities to do, so we want to make sure that nothing is forgotten.
Our first call is to rescue a grey seal pup entangled in fishing net. It's been spotted on a sandbank 2 miles off the coast, and the team have to work quickly to try to save it.
Look at its neck. Look at its neck.
The pup is entangled in part of a gill net, a vertical wall of netting that traps fish by their gills. It's made of incredibly strong, thin threads of plastic that are almost impossible to break free from.
This is a very young animal with a very deep laceration. You can see it there.
I can't get over how deep that is.
So this is the ear that was entangling the animal. So you see it's basically forms this deadly necklace around the seal.
Yeah, the width of that cut, I can't.
Yeah. And as the animal moves, as the animal swims, as the animal grows, it makes that cut deeper and wider.
What do you think its chances are, Brian?
It's hard to say.
1, 2, 3, lift.
So the plan now is to get that young seal back to I4 headquarters and give it 24-hour care because she's in such a bad state.
Fluids, and then we'll give her some antibiotics and pain meds. All right, so we'll grab all of our stuff and we'll get out of here and give her some rest.
Look at her.
All right, go ahead and close those doors.
It's not long before this 5-month-old pup's condition deteriorates. Sadly, she doesn't make it through the night.
Just watch your step there.
Yeah.
It's the job of biologist Misty Niemeyer to discover the cause of death for all the seals brought in by the rescue team. I joined the examination of another seal who suffered a fatal neck wound.
Well, we always want to, oh yeah, there it is.
Hang on though, is that what the rope did?
That was all done likely from this line. It somehow got this around its neck, and then it started to grow, and then it started to slowly cut into around the neck. So we'll want to do.
I mean, it's so young. Or how old is this?
So it was probably born sometime in May or June. So it's only a few months old.
I mean, these are intelligent, social, sentient mammals. This pup was in how much pain?
Something like this, where it's around your neck, where you're trying to breathe and where you're trying to eat, and you're constantly moving and swimming. That it's probably constantly painful. So we can just try to slide this off.
Think it will?
I think so.
Oh, dearie me. You guys are so amazing and pragmatic. Just holding its little head just sent me off.
Yeah, it can be difficult sometimes.
Oh dear. It's such a young little thing, you know? It didn't even have a chance at life at all. She's breaking my heart. They're all breaking my heart. This whole situation is breaking my heart. Can you believe this is what goes on when we carry on with our lives, you know? And then they've got to go back out there and keep going, and it just never stops. It's too much.
Entanglements are affecting animals all over the world, killing an estimated 300,000 marine mammals a year and over 400,000 seabirds. Many of these animals have been caught in plastic fishing gear. Whales in particular are badly affected because they migrate through some of the busiest fishing grounds. One species of whale is so under threat, it's being pushed to the brink of extinction. The North Atlantic right whale. To reduce the number of right whale entanglements, local authorities here have imposed strict fishing bans at the peak of their migration. And fishermen have also made significant changes to their fishing gear. But with more rules and restrictions on the horizon, a backlash is brewing.
We've got so much regulation jammed up our ass. The lobstermen, you're going to put them out of business. Not one of the boats in this harbor has caught a right whale, ever. Ever.
I tracked down another fisherman.
Nick.
Yes.
I'm Liz.
Hi, Liz.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Permission to come aboard.
Absolutely.
Nick Muto is keen to explain the struggle the industry is facing and why plastic rope is so vital to their work.
Can we see one of your lobster pot systems here?
So most of our end lines are 36 meters.
Lobster fishing involves a lobster pot thrown to the bottom of the sea, attached to a buoy at the surface by a very long length of plastic rope. It stays in the water for several days until the fishermen return to collect it.
Try to grab it from the ends and try to...
Oh God, I can't.
It's heavy.
How heavy is that?
It's probably 65, almost 70 pounds.
The plastic rope Nick uses can hold the weight of a family car. It's twice as strong as traditional natural fiber rope.
So I actually have some of the natural fiber rope. We've got some of it right here. This is the old hemp rope.
Good old-fashioned hemp. Okay.
And as you see, when I open the valve...
Whoa. Well, how long did that take?
Not long enough.
Show me that with one of your plastic ropes then. It's the same diameter, right?
Same diameter rope. Yep. And as you can see, there's no way.
There's no way.
We need to make sure that we have the ability to get our gear up off the bottom of the ocean. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars wrapped up in commercial fishing. My wife, myself, my daughter, my 3 crewmen and their families rely on me being able to make a living on the water.
It's estimated that 3 million miles of this virtually unbreakable plastic rope is used on this coastline alone. But it's this same rope that causes terrible harm to migrating whales. Thousands of these ropes hang vertically in the water, creating a deadly obstacle course. Despite their incredible size and strength, the only way to free the whales once entangled is to attempt an incredibly dangerous rescue mission.
So Liz, this is our team.
One of the few people skilled enough and brave enough to do this is Scott Landry. He and his team are on call 7 days a week, patrolling an area over twice the size of Britain.
This was on a humpback whale, and we worked on Saturday to remove this from this whale.
You've literally got the whole lobster pot gear. You've got the buoy at the top, the rope that extends down to the bottom of the ocean.
It's just rope, a pot, and a buoy, and it can cause a really complicated problem.
Scott recorded his latest mission on headcam.
There's the whale.
Ooh, right here, crossing our bow. Yep, put it in there.
And there's that buoy. And the grappling hook, he doesn't want the buoy, he wants the line that's underneath the buoy.
A yellow rope is hooked onto the fishing gear that's wrapped around the whale's tail, so they can edge themselves closer to one of the largest and most powerful animals on Earth.
So the whale is carrying on.
Oh, I can see the other rope trailing.
See all
this
the
is
rope,
all
that's
this
all
stuff.
this
This
rope
is all
right
this
here.
stuff. This is
That's exactly
crazy.
it. And so right now, they're letting the line pay out.
And the whale is dragging the boat at a fierce rate. You're going.
Yes.
You're being pulled by the whale, and you've got to let that whale take you.
Yeah, and the whale's going to react automatically.
I mean, I can't get over what I'm seeing.
All right, well, we're going to need a knife.
It's an incredibly dangerous procedure. Last year, Scott's friend and colleague died while trying to rescue a whale.
And so as the whale's at the surface, we draw ourselves closer and closer to the whale. You can see the wound and the rope going right into it.
Oh, yeah.
So the rope is plastic, it's not hemp, which is the reason why the whales are in such a pickle.
Yeah. So you can see our support boat in the background.
Yeah. All right, so right here, grab that quick.
So now on the end of that long pole is a hook-shaped knife that is extremely sharp.
After hours of back-breaking work, they skillfully release the boy. The plastic fishing rope is cut away, finally setting the animal free.
So it's now going to be free to swim away. This animal has a lot of work to do on its own now. Nothing we can do for it. We cannot give it medication, no palliative care. And so I can't say that this whale for sure is out of the woods.
It's estimated that between half and 2/3 of whales in these fishing grounds have been entangled at least once in their lifetime.
Whales are running from their breeding grounds to their feeding grounds, and they essentially are running a gauntlet. This is where it becomes extremely difficult for, say, a local fisherman to buy into this issue.
Are you finding that the majority of entanglements are caused by active fishing gear?
Yes, this was gear that was catching food for people. Now, getting to the point of catching whatever it is that you want on the seafloor or anywhere in the ocean without rope, that's the holy grail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Globally, there are fewer than 30 small rescue teams like this one, and an estimated population of 2 million whales. This can never be a long-term solution.
The only way to stop entanglements is to remove those vertical ropes from the water column. That's the only way they're going to really protect whales here.
Some of the fishermen here are open to finding out about alternative fishing techniques. Dave Cassoni from the Massachusetts Lobstermen Association has agreed to test a new fishing system that doesn't rely on floating vertical ropes. But he has his reservations.
Dave, I'm Liz.
Hey, Liz.
How you doing?
All right.
Nice to meet you,
Nice
finally.
to meet you.
Marco, right?
Yes, right.
Really good to meet you both.
Marco Flagg is the engineer who's designed the new fishing gear. His invention keeps the ropes attached to the lobster pot safely out of harm's way. It's only released when the fisherman wants to haul up his trap.
Don't get in my way over here either.
Okay, I'm out of your way. Very tense. Very, very tense, that's for sure.
First, Dave has to set up the new system.
So this line has to go inside here, and now this has to go in these gargantuan holes. I think this is very time-consuming and difficult in sea conditions.
It's tricky.
Time.
No, I can see
Now
that with
I-
everything else you've got to do. New technology, Dave.
Marco has it. He's got to attach it to that trap now.
It works by storing the rope and surface buoys that would normally float in the water in a container attached to the lobster pot.
You guys have got to all be away when this goes back in.
Right, Dave, where do you need us to be?
Up in the wheelhouse.
It sort of wants to go upright.
Is it going to go upright?
Up, yeah.
Here it goes, here it goes, here it goes.
The pots can now sit on the seabed without any plastic ropes causing an obstacle to marine life. But with no visible buoys, Dave needs to use a GPS system to find his pots.
You're going to the right. Or you could do a circle the other way. We need to turn back on ourselves, basically.
I'm putting it in neutral because we're right over it.
Okay, we're right over it, Marco. Here we go.
All right, we're deploying it.
Okay.
A transmitter on the boat sends a signal down to the container, which should trigger the release of the rope and the buoys.
now, I would have expected it to already be up, so there could well be a snag here somewhere.
So you're asking if it would work now? No.
Well, we're trialing it.
I gotcha.
After several failed attempts, the system proved successful.
There we go. Right there. 2 boys. There it is.
The technology is there, but there are glitches.
So even though you've seen this pop up,
yes,
you're not confident yet.
It has a lot to overcome. I'm not sure that I'm thrilled with being the pioneer on this.
Why not?
Because some pioneers are glorified, others are vilified. My saying in any way, shape, or manner that I endorse ropeless fishing will vilify me with the industry because the industry is so opposed. As a pop-up buoy, it will work. Is it practical? No.
Why?
Because it is too time-consuming. In our business, time is money.
Dave isn't alone. Many other lobstermen are skeptical about the new technology's design and its high costs. But approximately 340 million lobsters are caught globally every year. That's millions of miles of rope across our oceans, potentially entrapping whales. An effective ropeless system could not only protect whales all around the world, but the livelihoods of fishermen too. I've heard about a different design, the brainchild of lobsterman Mike Lane.
Hello, hello. I'm looking for Mike.
Right here.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Liz. You spoke on the phone.
Yes.
Rob Morris is the engineer helping him.
We wanted to come up with, first of all, a very rugged release that's basically bulletproof that Mike can't break.
Yep.
On the back of a lobster.
We'll try.
Or the back of his pickup truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to wake it up first.
Power on.
Oh, okay. Something's talking to something. Yeah.
This seems to be a sturdier and more feasible design. It takes just seconds to load, and the release and collection of the rope and buoys is much more straightforward.
It looks pretty simple, and it looks like it would work.
Why did you feel like you wanted to find a solution?
You got to be responsible for what you do in life. And I don't want to be responsible for killing a whale. They're beautiful creatures. I mean, we see them out there all the time. They're amazing, and I don't want my buoy wrapped around one. And I don't want people not to buy lobsters because they think I'm going to entangle in a whale. So I want to solve the problem.
Perhaps this exciting collaboration between lobsterman and engineer can finally put an end to the threat of whale entanglements and save the northern right whale from extinction.
I always feel like people portray fishermen as just a bunch of people that hate the environment, and we want to rape the ocean of everything it's worth. And we're not like that. I don't have a college degree. I don't have an education. I don't have anything else I can do. My whole life has been built around lobstering, and that's what I have invested in. So what do you do if your job is taken away? Well, I mean, you got to restart your life. How long will the bank let me go without paying my mortgage? So the sooner I get this finished and done with, the better off I'm going to be.
I am really glad I got to meet Mike today, just before leaving Cape Cod. He's really struck a chord with me, and I think it's because amidst all of the contention and complex issues and the discussions, which of course need to happen, he just decided to get on with it from the start, to take it into his own hands and be a fisherman that's finding a solution to a fishing industry problem.
I've spent the last 9 months researching this plastic crisis, and what's becoming clear is that the very qualities that have made plastic such a central part of our lives are also those that make it so destructive to marine life. Plastic is one of the most durable materials on the planet. Virtually every single piece of plastic that's ever entered the ocean is still there. In fact, just last year, plastic was found at the bottom of the Marianas Trench at a depth of 7 miles. And scientists have recently discovered that it's threatening one of the ocean's most fragile ecosystems, coral reefs. I'm heading to a part of the world known as the Coral Triangle, an area of coral reefs that stretches over 2.3 million square miles, from Indonesia to the Philippines and Papua New Guinea to the Solomon Islands.
Hi. It's so nice to finally meet you. Yes. Great. Can I help you with some stuff?
Yes.
I'm joining Assistant Professor Jolie Lamb, an expert in coral ecology, who is here to study why plastic is so lethal to reefs. Corals are extraordinary animals. Our oceans contain over 9 million species of them, and the reefs they create are the largest living structures on Earth. Coral reefs are the nurseries of the sea, providing shelter for a myriad of small fish and feeding grounds for a whole host of species. But with these precious ecosystems already straining under the pressures of our modern world, plastic is posing yet another threat.
There's almost as much plastic as there is sea squirts, isn't there?
Yeah, they're sachets.
It's definitely not a clean body of water that we're diving in today, is it?
Definitely not.
As soon as I'm under the surface, it's clear that this reef is in trouble. These corals are already immensely stressed due to rising water temperatures from global warming. And all around me, plastic is now covering these vulnerable animals. I helped Jolie to collect samples of the plastic. She believes that another danger is threatening the coral.
Just disgusting. Just disgusting. That's all I can say.
Did you think you'd see that much?
No, it just never ended. But then, more than anything, it's these flippin' things. Coffee sachet, softener sachet. What the heck is that? Coffee?
I think this is a tea or coffee.
A tea sachet.
This
A soup
cereal.
sauce sachet. Sachet after sachet after sachet after sachet.
Did you see the little juvenile recruits on that bottle?
Yeah. There's something really powerful about seeing a really old bottle with a coral growing out the neck of it. It's almost like nature's doing absolutely everything it can to try and survive this mess. And yet, right beside that little bit of life growing out of plastic, there's a whole area that's just dead.
And this is just one of the sites, so there are many islands out here that have much more plastic than this.
More than this?
There can be more plastic than this.
It's tragic. It's just, oh my God.
We head to a nearby island to examine what might be living on the surface of the plastic we've collected.
When we were coming up on the boat, it looked like a little piece of paradise, didn't it? And now,
just covered.
Look at all the fishing lines on the bottom of the pier. Shall we offload everything on the side?
Yeah, okay, we'll put this here.
Jolie's new research has led her to believe that lethal doses of bacteria are being transported on the plastic.
Plastics like this one here, it's just full of these little pits and pores. And even on a bottle, if you look up very closely, you can see all these nooks and crannies.
So it's about the texture of plastic?
Yes.
The surface of plastic provides the perfect home for bacteria to thrive. One of the most dangerous bacteria for coral is found in a group called Vibrio, one strain of which causes cholera in humans.
So what we're going to do is do a scraping of what's on this plastic, and we're going to test whether or not it has Vibrio. And Vibrio is a pathogen, which means it can cause disease in corals and shrimp and oysters.
Okay, so which sample would you like to start with?
Let's start with the rice sack.
And what's the liquid that's in here?
So this is just filtered, sterile seawater.
Okay.
Just want to turn it into a nice green pea soup.
Oh, that's brown soup, but it's definitely soupy.
And you just put 4 drops here and 4 drops here. Perfect.
Jolie uses a bacteria testing kit. If a particular toxin produced by Vibrio is present, a red line will appear in the small window.
Oh, what?
Look. Is that Vibrio?
Yes.
Oh! Oh my God. That's from the sack.
That's the sack. Yeah, this one is light too.
So what does this mean for this reef?
It's essentially a whole new way to transport diseases that we never even thought about until this year.
This year?
This year.
It's not clear yet why potentially lethal doses of bacteria thrives on plastic. But the result is that plastic floating in our oceans is turning into disease-carrying rafts. Once this plastic sinks and becomes entangled in the coral, it cuts into it like an infected knife, delivering bacteria into the open wound. Coral tissue is slowly destroyed as the bacteria moves across it, in the same way that gangrene spreads across human flesh. This newly discovered threat paints a harrowing picture for the future of our reefs.
So we looked at 124,000 corals with and without plastic. And when we see the plastic on the coral, the likelihood of disease goes up to 89%.
89%?
Likelihood, yes.
Mind-blowing. I'm absolutely gobsmacked. I thought I knew how much plastic was affecting marine life. I didn't for a second think it could also be a carrier of disease.
But there is a glimmer of hope. Some reefs are showing fewer signs of disease. We swim out to one of them to investigate. Here, the coral seems to be faring better, and it's even supporting an array of sea life. Jolie has been investigating possible reasons for this. As we head back to the coast, a meadow of seagrass is growing in the shallows. Jolie thinks that this seagrass could be contributing to the health of the reef.
So look at what happens. Like there's like no plastic, and then it traps it.
So essentially, this is the first line of defense. When you have seagrass before a coral reef, it physically traps the plastic.
Yeah, you can see it physically slowing the water down and also trapping it like fingers.
But seagrass may be doing much more than simply acting as a physical barrier.
What we found recently is that the seagrass reduces harmful bacteria by 50%.
50%?
50%.
That's extraordinary.
It is. Seagrass can actually kill bacteria that's harmful to people and also marine organisms.
So this is really seriously important stuff.
Seagrass meadows are not only trapping the plastic, they're also disinfecting it. It's thought that the grass could contain antibiotic properties that kills off the bacteria. More research needs to be done, but this is a promising discovery. It may be that nature will provide some solutions of its own to the plastic crisis.
Seagrass is on every continental shelf except for Antarctica. it is one of the most important ecosystems. And so if we can start showing that it's important for small islands like this, but also where I come from and where you come from, then that's the best way we can move forward.
When it comes to other global crises, when it comes to climate change, we have been studying that for decades now. We are only just beginning to really pay proper attention to plastic pollution in our oceans. And as much as there is hope with the seagrass, that can't be the only solution. It won't be. It won't be the only solution. We have to find other answers, and we have to find them very, very quickly.
So what else can be done to solve a problem of this magnitude? Predictions make for grim reading. Reports say the amount of plastic we use and throw away is growing year on year. And some have suggested that by 2050, there will be more pieces of plastic in the ocean than fish. I've read about valiant but small-scale efforts to clean up the ocean plastic, beach cleans, boat trawls and diving projects. And yet, with an estimated 51 trillion pieces of plastic in the ocean, they simply won't be enough. But it's been reported that one pioneering project could remove hundreds and even thousands of tons of plastic from the ocean. The project was devised by a 16-year-old boy. He's now 24 and is realizing his dream.
Boyan, hi, Liz. Nice to finally meet you.
I meet him in the Netherlands.
So when I was 16, I went scuba diving in Greece, and I looked around me and I saw more plastic bags and fish, and I just wondered, why can't we clean this up? You know, now we have a team close to 100 people, we raise tens of millions of dollars.
Boyan Slat and his team have designed a floating 600-meter tube with a 3-meter curtain hanging beneath it. Pushed by the waves, it will travel across the seas, collecting plastic as it goes.
Talk me through it, because it looks fairly simple, but obviously so much thought and brain power and collaboration has gone into this.
Yeah, it has been extremely complicated to get to something simple, I must say. So it's a very long floating barrier. The plastic just gets pushed around by the current. Like a giant Pac-Man, the system roams the ocean and collects the plastic.
Scientists have identified 5 colossal areas of plastic waste floating in our oceans. The plastic is gathered by enormous swirling vortexes, fed by a global network of ocean currents. Boyan is concentrating his efforts on collecting the plastic from the largest of these, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch between Hawaii and California, which is now over 3 times the size of France.
Pretty soon I discovered that everyone in the field was saying, well, no way you can do that. The ocean is too big, the ocean is too violent. Just forget about it. The only thing we can do is not make it worse. Which, first of all, I think is a very depressing message.
Just a few weeks ago, after years of research and development, Boyan launched his ocean cleanup system in San Francisco.
Am I allowed to jump the gun here already and ask you what the ambition is for ocean cleanup? How many of these systems do you envisage being out there doing their job?
Once the first system is working, we'll then start the scale up from 1 to around 60 of these systems roaming the Pacific Ocean. And if we manage to do that, well then we should be able to clean up half this Great Pacific Garbage Patch every 5 years. The sooner we get it out, the better it is for the ocean.
Just a few weeks ago, Boyan launched his ocean cleanup system in San Francisco. It's making its way to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch to begin its work. There will be many months of testing out in the open sea.
This plastic crisis is only going to be solved through a whole host of different collaborations and practical solutions from more people like Boyan. But projects like Ocean Cleanup don't stop the millions of tons of plastic from pouring into the oceans every year. And many scientists think that efforts should focus more on stopping that plastic from getting into the sea in the first place.
As the world wakes up to the scale of this crisis, new endeavours are cropping up all the time. A project on a remote Indonesian island is experimenting with a system they're calling the garbage bank. Here, the problem is easy to see. The ocean is the waste bin for hundreds of households.
In the last 25 years, to dispose of the plastic, people here are just dumping it into the ocean.
Yes.
I meet Professor Jamal Jompa, a marine scientist who's going to show me how the system works.
They see it's a solution, a simple solution for them to get away from this garbage.
And they have no other option. They haven't had any assistance from the governments or anyone else about where to put it. So where else would they put it?
Right. But for them, it is not a problem because they don't see that yet as a disaster. They don't see this is going to reduce or affect their livelihood.
Yeah.
The villagers here are taking things into their own hands. A community enterprise project has begun to make it worthwhile for locals to be more careful with their plastic.
Hello, hello. So what is this place?
This is called kind of garbage bank.
The bank collects used plastic from the neighbourhood, paying people by the weight they hand over.
People in the village get credit for the plastic they bring, but then what happens to this plastic?
Okay, so then they bring it to the city, Makassar.
And then do they get money for it?
Yeah, so they get cash, basically. So in Makassar, there's a central collection.
This garbage bank is the first link in a chain that's making plastic waste valuable.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
To find out if the system is effective, I follow the chain to Makassar City, the provincial capital.
Good afternoon. I'm looking for Nasrun. Nasrun?
Yes.
Hello.
Nasrun runs the facility here, sorting the plastic that arrives from 600 small garbage banks.
Saya bisa dalam satu hari kalau plastik 5 ton. Karena kami punya kantor 2.
5 tons a day. A day. So that makes me think two things. There's so much plastic to collect, but people are doing it. People are collecting it for you and bringing it to you. Ah, cups. I saw them preparing this on the island.
Once the plastic is sorted by type,
Wrapping. This is all bottles?
Yeah.
Various companies arrive to buy it.
Nasrun, where are these bottles going now?
Ini plastik ini akan dibawa oleh vendor yang ngambilin kebetulan ini vendor khusus botol. Itu masuk dibawa di gudangnya, nanti di sana disatukan kembali.
So I've just spoken to the guy who's buying these bottles and he's allowing me to follow them to his establishment, the next link in the chain.
We travel to a much bigger warehouse on the outskirts of the city.
So this is it. This is your operation.
The owner, Mawan Hassan, has been buying and selling used plastic bottles for 9 years. Mawan's team are processing thousands of bottles a day.
How big is this warehouse? How many sacks of plastic bottles do you have inside that warehouse right now?
Stok yang sekarang di dalam ini kurang lebih 30 ton.
30 tons. You've got a full house.
Full.
Oof. All bottles.
Yeah, special bottle.
Just bottles.
Here, the bottles are compacted before they're sold to a much bigger company in Jakarta, who shreds them up to be sold again and turned into lower-grade plastic products like carpet backing.
But you know what? This mass of plastic is being dealt with. 30 tons of plastic bottles are not in the oceans because of this guy. Having grown up in Makassar and seeing the change with the plastic, do you think that your business and other businesses like yours are making a difference?
Saya merasakan tidak berkurang, malah bertambah plastiknya.
Nggak pernah berubah, malah dari tren penjualan saya ke Jakarta itu tiap tahunnya malah meningkat. Berarti kan sampah malah justru malah bertambah.
So even warehouses like this and the amount of plastic you take in is not making a difference, you don't think?
Ini sebenarnya kalau mau kita urutkan ya, bahwa ini gudang saya masih terbilang kecil, masih kurang.
I'm feeling a little bit stupid right now and painfully naive. Like when I met Nasrun, I was so elated when I thought that, oh gosh, okay, there's a solution here, there's an answer. And of course they're doing something. It's better than doing nothing. But what I've just learned in here is that it's not breaking the back of the plastics problem. And this isn't making a difference. Like, what does that mean about how bad this is?
The reality is there simply aren't enough facilities here to keep up with this relentless deluge of plastic. But this isn't just Indonesia's problem. Across the world, only 11% of plastic is recycled. Currently, the focus is still on producing new plastic rather than recycling it. If something doesn't change, it's estimated that annual plastic production in 2050 will have increased by 500%. As scientists work tirelessly to better understand this crisis, a new plastic threat, possibly the most serious yet, is emerging. Trillions of microplastics, tiny pieces of plastic, some no bigger than a speck of dust, floating in our oceans. These microplastics are even transported to the top of the world, where I'm heading on my final expedition.
We're in Longyearbyen, the northernmost town in the world on the Norwegian archipelago of Svalbard. 1,300 kilometers that way is the North Pole. We're heading deeper inside the Arctic Circle. It's as untouched and remote a place as I think I've ever been, and yet we're here to investigate a plastic threat that's reached even here. It's the middle of summer, so you get 24 hours of daylight here, which is why at 2:30 in the morning it looks like this, and it might be a little bit hard to get to sleep on the journey up.
I'm joining Dr. Amy Lusher, a leading expert on microplastics, on a 3-day journey to one of the most extraordinary places on Earth. The Arctic is home to some of our most astounding wildlife. Magnificent polar bears roam the ice. Walruses haul out on the beaches. And majestic narwhals and belugas hunt in the freezing waters. We sail for 9 hours to a remote Arctic beach. Miles from any human habitation.
Wow. Even here, we are in a very remote part of the planet. And yet, the plastic reaches even here. Tomato ketchup, good Lord.
That's the tomato ketchup.
I mean, I can't believe the nozzle and the bottle separated at whatever stage. It's obscene.
Up here in the Arctic, the plastic becomes really, really brittle quite quickly, and they just start to break down.
So, yeah, it just snaps in your hand.
Finding big pieces of plastic in one of the most remote places on Earth is alarming enough.
So if you take this and fill it up with some nice clean water.
But Amy is much more concerned with the smaller fragments. We take a closer look at the sand.
So now we're just going to take a scoop of the top layer of sand.
Okay.
We put the sand in carefully. And if we tape it so it comes out of this corner, it will be a lot easier for us.
There's loads of bits of plastic floating on the top.
We call them microplastics. Normally, it's anything less than 1 millimeter in size, which is a microplastic.
Microplastic. Much of it is a result of larger pieces breaking up at sea, but it's also coming from some more surprising sources. Microscopic fibres are being washed out of our synthetic clothing. Last month, a UK university revealed that in each synthetic wash cycle, more than 700,000 microplastic fibres are released into the environment. Microbeads in toothpaste and face scrubs are being washed down the sink. And rain is flushing tiny plastic fragments from our car tyres into drains.
It just keeps getting more and more complex. I've been focusing on the big bits of plastic and how they're affecting wildlife. This is almost overwhelming to think about all of this stuff.
It's a little bit scary when you think about it. Originally, they used to say the only places that we hadn't found microplastics were the Arctic and Antarctic, but it's in front of us here.
Scientists now believe that the Arctic has some of the highest levels of microplastics in the world. And it's found its way into the food chain. In a recent study, scientists injected microplastics with a fluorescent marker. They discovered that tiny plankton are ingesting them. They then focused their research up the food chain to small fish, mussels, clams and oysters, and discovered that they were ingesting microplastics too. The concern now is that microplastics are heading further up the food chain to some of the biggest ocean predators. This island is home to a colony of walruses.
This one's rolling into the water.
And Amy wants to find out if microplastics have made their way into their diet.
What a sight for sore eyes.
This is the first time anyone has investigated this.
I'm just watching these stunning juveniles just frolicking. It's the only word I can think of. I mean, look at them. They're joyful here.
Despite weighing over a ton, walruses mostly feed on small mussels and clams living on the ocean floor. They dive and forage along the seabed, rooting through the sediment with their snouts. They can eat up to 6,000 mussels and clams in a day.
They've noticed us. They don't seem tense or nervous about our presence. And it's just such a beautiful sight.
To discover if walruses are ingesting microplastics, Amy needs to analyze their feces.
Poo! They just found poo. Poo, I can smell it from here.
This is a huge one.
That must be the dominant male. It's gotta be.
This has even got a little fibre in it.
A microfiber?
Yeah.
Already, there are signs of microplastics.
Fiber in this one as well. Yeah, fiber. Yeah.
Back in the lab, it doesn't take long to confirm what Amy has suspected.
So I found a fibre.
I can see it. I can see it.
So if you look down here, you'll see it a lot clearer.
Okay.
So that is a fragment of plastic. And from the shape of it, you can see that
it's red.
Yeah, it's bright red. And you can see that it's a piece of plastic that's been shaved.
So, the first evidence of plastic inside the feces of walruses in the Arctic.
Yeah.
Is this plastic that's coming the whole way up the food chain, from the plankton to the mussel to the walrus?
We know that the mussels have the plastic in.
The whole nature and the way that the walrus feeds, it's very likely that it's come from its prey.
So that's it. In the Arctic, one of the most remote, seemingly pristine places in the world, there is plastic from the very bottom of the food chain all the way up to the top. What does that mean for such a precious, fragile ecosystem like the Arctic that's already under tremendous pressure from mankind and the way we live?
As more plastic enters the environment, there's going to be more plastic available for animals to ingest. And we're going to see more plastic than anything else inside the animals. And I think that's quite shocking.
With evidence of microplastics throughout the entire food chain, it raises the question, what effect is it having on us? Scientists have now discovered that plastic is entering our bodies from a whole host of different sources. From the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat. The research about how all this plastic may be affecting us is in its infancy. But the evidence we have about how it affects marine life paints a disturbing picture. As the ocean plastic crisis becomes ever more apparent, more and more people are taking action to become part of the solution. All across the globe, people are giving up single-use plastic items like straws, takeaway cups, and plastic bags, and they're heading to the water's edge. In Indonesia, they're even mobilizing the army.
It's 7 o'clock in the morning here in Majalaya, and there's a real buzz in the air. The army have gathered here with some girls from a high school, 2 local NGOs, and elders from the villages around here, and they've all gathered here this morning to clean up as much plastic as they possibly can. The cleanup efforts taking place all around the world are incredible, but the thought I just can't get out of my head is we can try to clean up our rivers and coastlines. We can even try to clean up the plastic that's far out at sea. But unless we turn off the plastic tap, the unrelenting deluge that enters our oceans every day simply will never stop.
If we don't, the result will be catastrophic for all marine life. From the smallest creature to the largest mammal, our planet depends on a healthy and thriving ocean for its very survival. We can do this. We can save our oceans. But we need to act before it's too late. If you'd like to find out more about the actions you can take to help make a difference, go to bbc.com/plasticsaction.